Greetings, gang. David Gupple, Thinker Farmer here. It is 8 days till Independence Day, July 4th, 2022, 246 years after the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. I want to take a deviation from telling my farm story and focus specifically on the importance of taking a stand as Americans and as Christians today. The reason I'm going to talk about this is because today in our culture, there has been a strong and steady movement to encourage us to, with our paradigms, with our value systems, to essentially be open-minded and willing to view our nation's laws and the way of life that has become definitively American as something that is subject to change, old-fashioned and out of date. Statements like the Constitution is a living and breathing document, and that's our country's past, and we need to forget about that and look to the future. And things like saying it's a new world order, and we have a bigger world to view and face today. And I'm not against being open-minded as an individual or even as a nation and adjusting and changing and learning and growing over time. That's what the Thinker Farmer channel is partially about, is sharing my story and sharing how I have learned and the importance of growing in maturity over time. However, certain life values and principles are not subject to change. The circumstances may change, but the principles and the values, they hold true. They don't change. So, I don't want you as an American to be so open-minded that your brain falls out. And that's what I have become very concerned with in recent years is happening to Americans and to Christians. We have so much media that is bombarded with us. It's easy to forget and subconsciously quit acting on the strong moral paradigm that this country was founded and based on. So, with that being said, I would like to quote to y'all the fourth verse of our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Most of us don't know that there are 4 verses to it. Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued lands praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, and when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. That 4th verse started out by saying, when free men shall stand. What specifically should we stand for? In our country today, there's a lot of things that are simply taken for granted, and it's easy to forget what they are. They're just there, and you forget even to stand for them, and slowly they are simply taken away from you, as has happened in our country today. I have here a Declaration of Independence. Well, it's called a Citizens Rule Book, and it has within it the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and also the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to our Constitution. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right there, I want to hone in on those 3 values: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because the rest of this video is simply and just to give you a teaser, if it's not for you, I understand. That's fine. I realize you have a busy life. But specifically, what are values that you as a free American need to stand for, and how are you going to stand for them? What kind of character qualities are going to define you, and what is going to give you a good position to stand? Why you need to have these values to stand for, I think, is kind of self-evident. If you don't really have a value system or something to stand for, you have nothing really to live for or die for, and that is a very weak, empty, and purposeless way to live your life without anything that you hold dear. It's like a ship without a rudder. It's going nowhere. It's going everywhere, but it's not going to end up anywhere. So, life. It's rather serendipitous that, as I'm talking about this a few days ago, the landmark case Roe versus Wade was overturned in our Supreme Court. I believe this Supreme Court decision is probably more important than any election cycle or law that has happened in the last 10 to 20 years. I could be wrong. I'm not a political prophet, but time will tell. Unborn children, they have a right to life. Life begins at conception. It's not something to be tampered with or viewed lightly. It's something that's a gift from God. It has great value. Human life does. We should hold it as sacred. We should also stand for nature and the design of life as it was created by God. And in that stand for life, I think it's important to acknowledge the circle of life, the cycle, and the order that was created. And that means that as we hold human life as incredibly valuable, we do not do the same thing for animals. While we may respect animals and steward for them on the landscape, we recognize that in order for us to live, something has to die, whether it is a plant or an animal. And that's not being cruel. That's not being disrespectful of nature. It's actually respecting its design, because nature accepts that for anything to live, something had to die. And fake meat, where we are unwilling to allow animals to be killed, and we essentially sacrifice the ecology and burn away our soil's future through GMO corn and soybean crops to sustain ourselves, is a huge disrespect to human life, as well as life from a big picture perspective on this planet. So that's the first value I would encourage you to stand for. Stand for life. And that stand will take many different forms. You're really simply standing for God's design as it was created. Secondly, there's liberty. So liberty, I feel compelled to explain these things because today, the Founding Fathers, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they just listed that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They didn't go on and explain what they meant because back then everyone understood it. Today there's so much misinformation, I feel the need to explain these things. Liberty is not the freedom to do whatever you want, as some of us would like to believe today, or have been told that's the way it is today. Liberty is about having the freedom to think, and also the freedom to act upon what we know and do what's right. It is essentially about obeying our God-given conscience and God's Spirit. It is, and reality is, when we fall in line with nature's design, because reality is, no farmer and no man can ever outperform, outthink, and outdo the design that has already been given. We might think we can, but at the end of the day, we are better off to trust in God's design and follow His call of destiny, because that's the ultimate purpose, and that's the only way to reach ultimate potential, to take any other pathway for mankind, for a country or a civilization, is to guarantee destruction. Our founding fathers knew and understood this, and they predicted that if we ever turned away from trusting in the design that was given, which was what they sought to do when they set up this country, is follow a biblical-based design, they knew we would end up where we are, where we're headed today. Pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, now pursuit of happiness. What does the value of the pursuit of happiness mean? Why didn't the founding fathers say life, liberty, and happiness? They believed in what I'm going to call equal opportunity. They believed that every individual should have the opportunity to use their God-given talents and abilities, to use everything they have at their disposal, their creativity, their initiative, their diligence, their physical and otherwise assets, to go ahead and create something truly unique and special and a place for themselves. That's equal opportunity. Our founding fathers did not believe in equal outcome, which is where regardless of your performance, everybody ends up with the same thing. Equal opportunity is really just simple and plain justice. Equal outcome, or as it's called today, social justice, is one of the greatest injustices in the world. It's simply taking from the givers and rewarding all the takers. The givers are the people that are keeping the world running around and keeping things as they were designed functioning well. The takers they're subtracting from the total sum of things. They're not willing to synergize. They're not willing to add to what is there. They're simply willing to get what they want. It's selfishness. And so these are values we need to stand for as Americans. These are things that we still have today, and we take them for granted in our country. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So how do I propose you stand for these things? Today, with the amount of media out there, and it doesn't matter the form it takes, it's easy to feel like a minority in standing for these things. And I've told you what you need to stand for. Some are just a few examples. There's many other values you can stand for. These three are very principal, and they're easy to talk about because they're contained in our Declaration of Independence. But how are you going to take a stand? Well, I have a few things I'm just simply going to say, qualities that you're going to need. If you don't have them, get them. One is conviction. You're going to have to believe strongly about some things. Two is you're going to have some grace. If you're not tactful, if you're not giving or respectful in how you go ahead and share your values, you're not going to win anyone over. You're not going to open anybody's eyes to the truth. You're simply going to push them away if you do so in a brash and coarse way. You're going to need humility. At the end of the day, standing for these values is not about a pride in ourselves or in yourself. It is about taking a stand, saying like Lee Greenwood, "I'm proud to be an American," is really about it's really about a pride in a higher honor and a higher cause. And so you need to have humble obedience to that higher cause, to that higher design that you were made for. And lastly, you're going to simply need courage. And that means that you're going to be concerned in the bigger picture with what you know is right, not with what others think of you, or even with what feels right in the moment. You're going to have to separate yourself from that. And I want to close, hopefully I've kept it brief, by stating that once you've gone ahead and figured out why you're standing for something, how you're going to do it, and actually what you're going to take a stand for, the values you're going to take a stand for, you don't need to worry about whether or not you're in the majority, because the greatest stands for liberty, for life, and for opportunity that have been made in America or throughout history have not necessarily been made by the majority. When our country declared independence, most people in our nation were indifferent. There was only a few people that really believed in taking a stand and fighting for independence. But what those few people did have, and what we need to have today, is holding the moral high ground and being willing to live and die on that. So with that, I wish y'all a happy Independence Day. Get the grill out, have a great time with friends and family, and blessings for the journey.